Hello everyone, I am Ram Martinez. I'm your GFB chair and I'm here to talk to you about the monthly reports, how to read them and how to use them to your advantage. So first things first, let's talk about a recap of the finance health revamp, wherein we're going to talk about what were the changes with how we view financial health. So first, our first change is that we had introduced the finance health indices, then focus on sustainability categories, then waste and finance standards percentage calculation, then we had introduced the global and regional clusters, product overview, and network overview. So there are two main indices, which are FPI or Financial Process Index and FSI or Financial Sustainability Index. So financial process is an index that evaluates the compliance of financial process of an entity, which means this covers from legality to auditing standards. While the Financial Sustainability Index evaluates the growth and structure of sustainability of an entity. This solely focuses on sustainability standards with an emphasis in measuring its subcategories from entity, product, HR, other financial indicators, and risk. So FPI focuses on systems, administration, and work routine, while FSI focuses on financial performance, pipeline, and stability, in which we're going to combine them would be the overall finance standards. Alright, so the one on the left are the weights to calculate the FPI and FSI, and then the overall finance standards percentage. As you can see, the overall finance standards percentage, because there are two main indices that are being calculated, they are basically average, so meaning just divide the weights from the two different indices by 2. So as you can see, alright. Now at the one at the right is the FPI and FSI, how we're going to view and comparison the different entities. So FPI is the foundation aspect, while FSI is the growth aspect. Then finance health dashboard basically corresponds to different categories, which are finance standards in general, finance standards specific, clusters, product, and network. At the one here at the side is more on the screenshots of different parts of the finance health dashboard. But if you wanted to learn more about the reference, you can see there are the links here, the dashboard, the booklet, and the video. Alright, now going to the monthly reports. The monthly report has 6 main categories or 6 main compositions, which are the summary page, the finance standards calculation, sustainability levels and trends, exchange performance, financial indicators and data, and 1718 data. I will go through more in terms of the specifics regarding this later on. And also, by the time that you're going to receive this resource and the video, you're going to be able to see the localized currency version of the reports, which will now be available. We will talk more about this one a bit later on. Now let's talk about the summary page. The summary page is the page that you automatically see on when you're going to receive the report. This is the first page of the report, in fact. Now the top bar shows the basic details about the entity, quick view of finance indicators, and finance standards fulfillment. So the top part is more on the quick bits of certain parts of of your entity, such as core performance, different parts of the indicators, the clusters, accounting software, etc. The middle left, which is this part right here, is the shows the finance standards fulfillment of the current month and its entity regional global comparison. Meanwhile, the one at the bottom left shows the sustainability level information of the current month. This also includes the comments depending on which level you are now. So meaning you will see what level is that your entity is at this current month and the comments that supports it. Now, on the middle right section shows the numerical data of ratios and profit and loss of the sustainability levels of the current month. So meaning we are focusing on the entity sustainability levels and the product sustainability levels here. The one in the middle is the 1819 cumulative data for product profit loss, approvals, and the percentage exchange revenue per total revenue, and the pie graph that accompanies it. The one at the side is the chart of the total product profit loss versus approves of 1819 as current month. The one at the bottom is the 1819 profit loss statement beside the cost versus revenue breakdown comparison as of 1819. Now, to clarify, when we say as of 1819, this basically means what is happening with your financial movement since 1890 started, since August 2018. So since this specific example was based on December 2018, then that means this is more on from August 2018 to December 2018 data. The purpose of the summary page is to be able to easily find the current month's information. So this makes it easy to identify the red flags and how's the progress so far. Then the reader can go through the related specifics of that quick info from the summary page and then read further into that information in a deeper level. So there has been a lot of entities that's been asking, can we have a quicker view of the GFB reports? That is why we put the summary page, so that if you don't want to read every single thing in the GFB report, you can just look at the summary page. If you see there are red flags, if you see there are problems, if you see that there had been improvements, you can go and take a look on the specifics on the next few pages. Alright, now finance standards calculation, this is pretty easy, but basically this is more on the progress of the finance standards fulfillment and the finance health indices. So this is useful to review the progress with the finance standards calculation, how it compares to regional and global average, and identify which standards needs to be focused on for improvement. So this is more on monthly progress that's been happening based on the finance standards so far. There's also this graph right here which shows the comparison from entity, regional, and global. So if your entity is more on the outside, meaning this is higher than the regional and global, then that's good. If the certain parts of the entity is lower than the regional and global, then I would suggest for you to focus on them. Alright, sustainability levels and trends. Now, the next page after that one is the sustainability levels information, where in the top section shows the monthly progress to identify if the entity sustainability and product sustainability had reached level 0, 1, and 2 in certain parts of the month, in certain months of the term. There are also comments on the side, this part right here, that explains the reasoning. Now, sustainability levels are calculated based on annual amounts. So, meaning if the month is December 2018, the amounts used are accumulated from January 2018 to December 2018. The reason for this is to show a holistic progress of entities without the extremes from peaks. As you may know that every month there are different variation in terms of financial movement. There are certain months that we have very high revenues, very low revenues. There are even times that there are just not that much movement at all. So that's why sustainability levels calculation is based on annual amounts, so that it would be more holistic in terms of how we're going to view the progress of our financial health. Now, sustainability trends and in terms of entity. This section shows the monthly progress of entity sustainability levels in terms of numerical equivalent of ratios and profit loss. So, as you know, that entity sustainability is actually composed of three main parts: LC, MC, and entity. Now, LC level ratios and MC level ratios are based on the formula of the finance standards. This is to show the relative surplus depending on the formula. Meanwhile, its comparative profit loss version shows the absolute surplus depending on the formula itself. So if we say level ratios, it's based on relative surplus. Meanwhile, if we say level profit loss, it's based on absolute surplus. That is based on LC and MC sustainability trends. Meanwhile, for entity sustainability trends, we use more on the profit margins and the profit loss of certain levels. So profit margins is to show the relative surplus depending on the annual total revenues and total costs from LC, MC, and entity, which is why there are three levels here. Meanwhile, profit loss shows the absolute surplus depending on the annual revenues and costs from LC, MC, and entity. Now, let's talk about sustainability trends for LC. LC's sustainability level ratios comparison shows the monthly growth and drop of LC level 1 and level 2. So this one right here, the green one is level 1, the blue one is the level 2. Meanwhile, LC sustainability level profit loss comparison shows the monthly drop as well, based on the profit loss of level 1 and level 2. Now, if LC level 1 and if LC level 1 ratio and the profit loss itself are above 0, that means the direct revenues are higher than the direct cost. Conversely, if it's below 0, then that means revenues is lower than the cost. If for the level 2 itself shows that it is higher than 0, that means LC direct revenues is higher than the LC total cost. Direct revenues is higher than total cost. Conversely, if they are below 0, then that means LC direct revenues is lower than LC total cost. For MC, similar version as the one in LC in terms of level 1 ratio and level 2 ratios and profit and loss as well, but just different in terms of the formula itself. So in terms of MC level 1, meaning if it is higher than 0, that means MC total revenues are higher than total cost. Meanwhile, if it's below 0, that means MC total revenues is lower than total cost. But if MC level 2 shows to be higher than 0, that means the MC core performance is higher than the 70% of MC total cost. Conversely, if it's below 0, that means MC core performance is below 70% of the total cost. Now for entity sustainability. Now, for entity sustainability level ratios, comparison shows the monthly growth and drop of profit margins of LC and MC entity. Meanwhile, for the profit loss is also quite similar. So as you can see, this is the main difference. If profit margins and profit loss of LC, MC, and entity are above 0, that means the total revenues is higher than total cost. Conversely, if it's below 0, that means total revenues is lower than total cost. Now, for profit loss of entity may or may not be equal to profit loss of LC and MC, because as you know, like ideally LC and MC would be equal to entity, but there are times that it differs. Why? Because the entity affiliation fees, revenue internal, and entity affiliation cost internal are not counted in the profit loss of entity, as they're supposed to be equal already. If the results of the profit loss LC and MC is not equal to the profit loss entity, this means that there are unequal amounts between the EAF revenue and EAF cost that resulted to those amounts with the profit loss. Thus, there's a need for accurate accounting and reporting. Yes. Alright, now for the sustainability trends in terms of the products, this section, the one here, shows the monthly progress of the product sustainability levels in terms of numerical equivalent of ratios and profit loss of sustainability levels. Product level ratios are based on the formula itself. This shows the relative surplus depending on the formula. Meanwhile, product level profit loss is based on absolute surplus. As you can see, there are quite similar idea. The level 1 ratio would be based on the direct revenues and direct costs, meaning if level 1 is higher than 0, then direct revenue is higher than direct cost. If not, that means direct revenue is lower than direct cost. If level 2 is higher than 0, that means the direct revenues is higher than the direct cost and indirect cost of that product. Conversely, if it's below zero, that means direct revenues are lower than the sum of direct costs and indirect costs. Now, this logic applies to all products. So you need to check how are the how sustainable are your products depending on level 1 and level 2, and you can really use this graph so that you can see how the financial movements are actually moving if you're going to compare how we absorb direct costs and indirect costs. Exchange performance. So the top table shows the profit loss of each product per month of the term. This would be useful to identify the profit loss levels of different products and months. So for this one, this is more on monthly product profit and loss. Now, as you can see, I did not put any specific warning of if it is calculated on per annual amounts, because this is a monthly product profit per loss. Middle table shows the approvals of each product per month of the term. This would be useful to identify the number of approves of direct products and months. So, question: would there be some certain discrepancy when we're going to compare to expa? Maybe there can be, but we base the approval numbers based on DAAL itself. Now, product profit loss versus approved comparison graphs, with the ones that you're seeing right now here, shows the relation of the monthly profit loss levels to approves. This is useful. This is useful for different comparison in terms of how is your monthly product loss and approves are being relevant and affects your financial sustainability in your term. Alright, now the product profit loss versus approves. Now, just to continue, this is useful for identifying how each product reacts between their generated profit loss and related number of approves of that month. As I mentioned earlier, there are times where more approves one product has, the higher the profit. Other times, the more approves could lead to bigger losses. There can also be instances where the relation between the profit loss and approves are changed frequently and drastically, thus needed to be taken look into. This logic applies to all products. Now, total product profit loss versus approves comparison monthly shows the relation of monthly profit loss levels to approves of all products. This is useful for identifying the monthly relationship of the product profit loss and approves if consolidated. Meanwhile, the one at the right is based on whole term, shows the relation of profit loss levels approves for the term 1819. Now, because of there are different levels that could happen in different month to different products, the relation between the total profit loss and approves change frequently and drastically, thus needed to look more into. There are times where the more total approves could lead to bigger losses, which could mean either all products generate loss or some products' losses are higher than the other product's profit. Now, percentage of exchange revenue or to total revenue shows the relationship of product revenue to total revenue. So it's basically more on how much is your exchanges, how is your exchanges contribute to the total revenue. The one at the bottom is the monthly approval performance graph, is a visualization of the number of approves basically. Oh, and the one here at the bottom as well is the overall financial status. Key indicators, just to repeat. Financial indicators and data, wherein this part is the financial status key indicators. Now, there are 7 main key indicators, overall financial status. First is the month of financial reserves, defines how many months will the entity be able to operate assuming there's no revenue generated or comes to a state of emergency. The formula is equity divided by average cost of 12 previous months. The reason why we do it average cost of 12 previous months is because every month has extremes and off peaks, and we don't want that factor to be involved with the month of financial reserves, because financial reserves is based on equity, and equity is affected by multiple by the progress of the whole term, so, or rather for the whole year. So it's better to use equity divided by average cost of 12 previous months. Liquidity cash ratio, measurement of a company's liquidity and their ability to meet their short-term obligations. It is almost like an indicator of the firm's value under the worst case scenario. Liquidity current ratio measures the ability of a company to cover its short-term liabilities with its current assets. Core performance LC, of course, core performance of LC, percentage of exchange revenue to revenue. Core performance MC is exchange revenue and entity affiliation fees to total revenues. Meanwhile, core performance entity is based on exchange revenue to total revenue. Now, entity affiliation fees revenues from MC, as you notice, the one in core performance MC involves the EAF, is that it's not counted anymore when it comes to core performance entity. The reason is that it is cancelled out by the EAF cost of LC if we're going to compare it. Debt ratio measures the extent of a company's leverage. The higher the debt ratio, the more leverage a company is, implying greater financial risk. This table is found at the bottom of the monthly approval performance. This is actually quite a slim section of the page, so you need to kind of check it out there. Now, profit loss statement summary. So profit loss statement summary shows total revenue, total cost, profit loss, and cumulative. So as you can see, this is how they're broken down: revenue, cost, revenue, cumulative. In this section, there are three tables, which is past term data, the one on the top, planned data or budget plan of 1819, with the one in the middle, and actual data, profit loss, which is what's happening over the term. Alright, the one at the middle is profit loss statement graph. A planned graph is a visualization of how you are planning for the whole term. So as you can see, revenue, cost, and result are bar graphs wherein we can show how much revenue and how much cost is gonna be happening per month, and then the result would be the one at the light blue. Meanwhile, the line graph is a cumulative, so you can see how the growth is out there. Now, profit loss statement actual graph is also below here. Related information, similar idea as the one on the graph on the top. Meanwhile, at the right, profit loss results summary, which is based on past term versus plan versus actual, just to compare past versus budget versus actual. Meanwhile, the one here at the bottom is quite similar, but is focusing more on the cumulative itself, not the results, which is to see the visualized comparison of cumulative results based on past term, budget plan, and actual amounts. Now, same logic applies to MC and LC version as well. Now, in terms of the profit loss statement, 1819 is organized monthly with planned and actual columns side by side per month. There are three tables available. One is profit loss statement summary, which is the first one that we will see. Next is the revenues table, and then the cost table. Now, how do we categorize the summary? So we categorize it for the entity, we base it on exchange revenue, which are the 6 revenues. Partnership is based on BD, Youth Speak, and local volunteer. Then conference revenue is local and national and international conferences. Then other revenues is sponsorships and other revenues. For cost, we categorize it similarly, when exchange is for the 6 products, partnership and engagement is BD, Youth Speak, local, and local volunteer. Conference is local, national, and international conferences. Overhead costs are all of the overhead costs. Other costs is EAF to AI, PR, and other costs. Now, this is for the profit loss statement entity summary. Now, how will the MC and LC version will go to? Now, it is the similar logic applies to entity version as well, but there are slight difference. For revenue, for LC and MC, we take into consideration the entity internal revenue. Meanwhile, for cost, we take into consideration the EAF to MC. You may notice that in the entity portion, EAF internal revenue and EAF to MC are not counted. The reason for this is the same thing that I already mentioned before, is that they need to already cancel out. If there's a discrepancy, that means your accounting are not accurate as much, because these accounts should already match itself. Now, this type of graph is just a total revenue and total cost comparison, planned versus actual, per month. This applies to entity, MC, and LC. These graphs is only for the entity part, wherein first is revenues by main categories per month. Next is cost main categories per month, and then cost by overhead categories. You will see the specifics below. Then this is useful to see which account contributes the most within certain months, and which month can be considered in terms of peaks. There's also total pie graph version, just to visualize what's happening in total for the whole term. Yeah, so the one at the left is the monthly version, the one at the right is the total version. Now, first part is total direct exchange revenues versus approval. Second part is total direct exchange cost versus approval, shows how much is earned and how much is spent per approvals of the month. Meanwhile, at the side is revenues by exchange products and cost by exchange products, which is broken down per product in monthly basis. As you can see, in terms of the size, in terms of the graphs, the one on the top for revenues, they are quite similar size. The one is just at the side is the broken down version per product. Similar idea to the one in the cost. Now, direct revenues versus direct cost comparison, the one here, shows how big is the direct revenue to its direct cost in each product. This makes it easier to pinpoint which product is operating in a profit or loss and compare it with other products of what's happening for the whole term. So as you can see, if the blue line, which is the revenue, is bigger, then that means there's more revenue that is happening for that specific product. Meanwhile, if the gray line is bigger, that means there's more cost that's happening for that product. Direct revenues versus direct cost versus approvals shows how much is earned and spent side by side by products comparing to the total approvals of the term. So this is more on like kind of a summary version of what's happening with the previous class that I just mentioned. Meanwhile, total indirect cost, sorry about the typo, versus approval compares how much is spent to the total approvals in monthly basis. This is useful to see if there is a possible relationship with indirect cost to approvals. So as you know, that indirect cost is usually more on maintenance, more on overhead, more on fees that are not necessarily for a specific product, but this is more on a good way to see if there is somehow a relationship, or rather how we can mitigate a more level playing field in terms of indirect costs. Yeah. Balance sheet for entity section is organized monthly and have three main tables: summary, assets, and liabilities. So assets are four categories: cash, bank and petty cash, long-term assets, long-term receivables, then short-term receivables. While for liability and equity are equity, long-term liabilities, and short-term liabilities. Similar to the profit and loss statement, there are a bit of differences. The only difference here from entity version to MC and LC version are the internal accounts. The reason for this, because if they are internal, usually these accounts should cancel themselves internally within the entity. So if there is a discrepancy, so we need to take into look on how the accounting for these accounts work from either LC's or MC's side. Now, balance sheet distribution by categories in terms of entity is a visualization of the assets account and liabilities and equity accounts side by side per month. So this logic applies to MC and LC version. Alright, 1718 data. 1718 data block is similar to exchange performance and financial statements block. There are some slight differences, so meaning I don't need to pretty much explain a lot about this one. So slight differences is that for exchange performance, this focuses on 1718. Financial indicators is that they are not included due to previous term, 1617, where the data was still collected quarterly. So it would be difficult to calculate the indicators on a monthly basis, knowing that the data would be per 12 months. And monthly profit loss statement is the 1718 version. Meanwhile, balance sheet is the 1718 version. So 1718 data block is useful as reference, mainly for reference, to compare the past term data and current term data in specifics. This would be useful as to know how the sustainability levels and trends are calculated, since they use annual amounts to buffer out peaks differences. Now, reading sample. So this one, okay, let's have a sample how to read the reports, right? So this is the summary page. These are certain areas of the summary page. So at the part of finance standards fulfillment, first you need to look into which standards holds you down to achieve 100%. Look into which standard is lower than regional and global level. Check the finance standards fulfillment and standards calculation tab of the finance health dashboard itself for more details, and then focus on those standards and subcategories that holds you down. Now on the sustainability trends and levels, level information, look into the sustainability level, which are the ones that are at 0 or level 1. Check the sustainability levels and trends for monthly progress, the pages after. Review profit loss statements of 1819 and 1718 even in deeper level if needed. Remember that sustainability levels are based on annual amounts, so it would be good if you can check what's happening in terms of the profit loss. Focus on improving on those related transactions that may have caused the low level or slow progress or drop of level. Next, the one here is based on 1819 cost versus revenue comparison. Look into the breakdown of the accumulated revenues and costs. If your cost is bigger than the revenue, check the cost category that takes up much space and look further into the specifics. If your revenues are bigger, then check the specifics of the revenue categories and how they are achieving the planned and actual. Then next one is look into the 1819 percentage exchange revenue divided by total revenue and check how the accounts are contributing to the total revenues. If the non-exchange revenue is significantly bigger than most of the exchange revenue, check the specifics in the profit loss statement to identify how to increase more exchange revenue. If exchange revenue is slightly bigger than the non-exchange revenue, check if those exchange products are generating profit. In the exchange revenue, review the monthly percentage of exchange revenue per total revenue to see how the activities of the products are moving. Now here at the side, look into the 1819 profit loss and see which product is experiencing losses and profit so far. If a product is on loss, check the specifics of the profit loss statement to see why the product is at loss. If a product is on a profit, then check the plan and actual to see if they're being achieved and compare. So even though that of course a product is on a profit, then you need to check, okay, my product is on a profit, but is it actually achieving the planned budget? In the exchange performance, review the monthly progress to see how the activities of the products are moving. Now let's talk quickly about the local currency situation. Now, for the local currency versus euro version, as you know, we made the local currency version of the report. This is more on to have a better view for majority of those non-European entities or non-euro currency based entities to read the reports and relate it to their own entity. You may notice some differences with the financial indicators, sustainability, trends and levels, and even other aspects as well when comparing the local currency version and euro currency version. The reason for this is because of exchange rates that change monthly when computing the monthly euro converted version. Thus, there would always be some differences every month and in terms of the calculation as well. With this, you may do a comparison between the local currency version and euro converted version to learn how the changes of exchange rates impact the calculation. Some entities have huge impacts. Some entities just a slight changes, but still within the same level of what they have achieved. For this term and consistent comparison sake, we will base the finance standards percentage of the entity based on the euro converted reports. Further discussions regarding the local currency version will be tackled soon, but of course, from now we are going to provide the local currency report so that it would be a lot easier for you to relate how the changes in terms of the sustainability trends and levels and financial indicators and other aspects of the financial health of your own entity would be right now. And that's it. For more questions regarding the progress report, please contact the GFB chair at gfbchair@ai.isec.org. And if you have more ideas or more comments and recommendations that you wanted to give to GFB, just feel free to contact GFB and I will totally read all of them. Thank you so much and good day.